Welcome to Talk Dirt to Me, where two farmers shatter myths and take on the top issues facing America's farmers. Here's your hosts, Logan and Bobby Lee.
Yeah, good morning. Been a little while since we've done an actual morning recording.
It has. It's still a lot better than 4:30 in the morning ones we used to do. I'd much rather prefer these.
Yeah, it's not that early.
Yeah, we got a great one for you guys today. Another awesome guest. But before you get to hear about that, we got a couple of things we need you to do. First, we need you to leave us a rating and a review. And you guys are still crushing it. And we did kind of tease the giveaway on Instagram.
You did. Yeah.
We're going to have a huge giveaway coming up. And want to just get you guys ready because this is going to be our biggest giveaway yet. We've already talked. We got something pretty awesome working with Ag-Zaga, and we got quite a few things in the works. So you'll need to be prepared for that one. But leave us those ratings and reviews. Submit your questions on talkdirtpodcast.com and comment if you're watching this on YouTube. Let us know what you think of Bert's beard if you're watching on YouTube. And what else I need to do?
Yeah, well, Logan already mentioned our good friends at agzaga.com. Y'all know the drill. Go check them out. All the good stuff. They're running lots of sales right now too. Believe a lot of seasonally appropriate things like sprayers. Again, the bail net wrap. I mean, baling season. I say it every week. It's coming. You won't beat their prices, their selection, the fast, cheap shipping, and the best part is everything's 10% off when you use that discount code. Talk Dirt, all caps, all one word.
Yep, guys, check them out. I got an awesome guest for y'all today. This is actually, I was trying to think, Bert, how many on my old show I had you on 2 or 3 times?
Yeah, I can't remember. I know we got to talk some good stuff. I was thinking about that this morning driving to work. I was like, how many times have we talked? But my memory isn't very good anymore. So I know we have the numbers of which I don't remember, to be honest.
I'm the same. I'd have to go and look. I know it's either, I know I had you on twice, maybe 3 times. So, either way, I'm stoked to get you back in here and on a different side, man, on the ag side of things. Probably one. Were you surprised? Are you a little surprised to be on an ag show or not?
Kinda. It's not. This is my first time I've been on an ag show, so I'm probably going to learn more than I'll teach. I'm a half-assed land manager, so I've kind of laughed. I'm better at a red hand than a green thumb. But I'm better at that stage of the process, but I'm trying to learn the other side of it. So I'm really interested in what our conversation is going to be because I'll be taking notes, and I've already taken notes today since we started talking before the show.
Yeah. Well, man, hey, I'm a farmer and I'm still might have a better red thumb than a green or a red hand than a green thumb. But before we get in, because there is something really neat, and I don't know that you've ever really gotten to talk a whole lot about the Sorinex Farm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really want to go into that because we got a lot of guys, man, we got people all across the country that are in various aspects of agriculture. And that's agritourism, having people out on the land doing that. And so, because I got to thinking, I'm like, really what y'all are doing is ag. It's agritourism, getting people on the land.
I hadn't heard that term before. I like it. That's maybe it helps me substantiate some of my my actions.
Yeah, well, and that's what it is, man. But now before we get into that, I want to share your background because we mentioned we're in the morning. I'll tell you, if we were drinking at night, I would have me a glass of Angel's Envy in honor of your dad.
Yeah. It's a bottle, not a. It is pretty early, but I appreciate that.
Yep, man. I thought a lot of your dad. He was awesome, man, and built a great legacy that you're continuing at Sorinex. And so, tell the guys a little bit. Give us your background, kind of who you are, and then let's go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of glaze over the wave tops. So here from South Carolina, only child. Was brought up by my dad in outdoors as much as possible. We never had any land. We're always, hunting on borrowed, leased, or public land, and enjoying the outdoor lifestyle. And that's kind of been since I was a little boy. But in 1980, he had always been into weightlifting, and so in 1980 he started a business called Sorin Equipment, which built weightlifting equipment. And we started local churches and like, high schools and stuff like that. And was able to grow it extremely slowly, but we've grown it into a pretty robust business. We're international customers now, and the majority of our stuff is college sports, professional sports clients, elite military organizations. And so we build like high-end strength equipment, human performance equipment. So strength and conditioning, weightlifting stuff like that. So that's what are kind of my two loves are similar to my dad's, which has always been the strenuous life or weights and weightlifting and doing hard stuff. But that's kind of gone hand in hand with the outdoors. Those two aren't always seen as like the same category or similar category, but the mindset behind both is there, which is generally what everything you want is on the other side of hard work and time. So everything is delayed gratification. If you want to be big and strong, that's not going to happen in 6 weeks. It's more like 6 years. And if you want to grow, a great stand of trees or big deer or whatever, and that's what I'm having to learn is like, it's not going to happen this year. And I literally was talking to one of my foresters yesterday about some of the work we're going to do out on my farm and kind of getting the overall, idea. And we were talking about, what do we want to see in 10 and 20 and even 50 years, which most likely I won't be around, and I'd be 98 years old. And if I'm 98 years old and still on the same farm, then, hey, I won,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's kind of my lifestyle. And so I've been here at the company for 26 years, design, sales, and I run the company now. So yeah, that's where we are. And years ago, I took my two passions, strength and conditioning and the outdoors, and combined them and created Sorinex Outdoors, which is kind of really just a special interest group of people that live both lifestyles and want to benefit from both sides of it. And a lot of what I saw was the outdoor world. More and more people were trying to get fit. They were trying to be strong and live a more virile lifestyle as they got older. And I had all the contacts in that human performance space that could help that world. Conversely, those that grew up in a gym or a weight room, very few of them had lived a rural or an outdoor lifestyle. And so my goal was to introduce them to that side of the equation, because I thought there was a lot of interest and healing and a lot of things that could be done there. Kind of, as I joke, like, after the lights and after all the crowds die down, like, now what? Okay, great. You're a professional, whatever. Now what are you going to do for that adrenaline rush? But then also to be able to down regulate and enjoy really nature, which in my opinion is one of the only real truths out there. And so, sports are great and all that other stuff was big and all that, but it's still a contrived thing by men. And so I always kind of tend to fall back into the outdoors world. And so the idea was just to take my two friend groups and people that I had that were high performers on both sides and introduce them, and Sorinex Outdoors.
Yeah. Well, it is an awesome thing that y'all are doing. And, Winter Strong is kind of the bread and butter, I guess, of Sorinex Outdoors. And
it's kind of like the physical manifestation of it. And what I would say on the best day, that's what Sorinex Outdoors looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is awesome. I had the good fortune of going, I think it was actually 2020, I think in the peak of COVID. It was 2020 or 2021. And I'm going to go back, but it falls on my daughter's daddy-daughter dance every year. And,
yeah, same for us. And so I started doing the daddy-daughter dance at Winter Strong, just because my daughter, the first year or two we missed, I just didn't know about it. And then she's like, well, all this thing has happened. I was like, screw it. It's like, get your dress, get your friends, let's do this. And so, but yeah, no, it's a bad weekend for that.
Yes. And it never fails. But I will be back. But,
well, I can tell you it doesn't last forever, because I just had my last one with my daughter. So
don't tell me that.
It goes fast. Yeah.
Don't tell me that. Yeah. Yeah. That's a hard one to hear.
Yeah. It's one of those things with kids. Yeah.
How old is she?
11.
Oh,
So
crap.
fifth.
My daughter turned 11 like a week ago.
Well, fifth grade is where ours ends for our school, because of course then they go to middle school. But
Then they're too cool.
Yeah, they're too big for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I've always been a guy, like they say, like, oh, they're too old or too young or whatever. I just don't usually believe that kind of stuff. So it's like, if you want to do it with your kid and they're open to it, I don't really usually go by the age norms, you know. So that's just my thing. But it's hard to have a daddy-daughter dance and no one else shows up. So.
Yeah.
Or you just
Well, you talking about Sorinex, I know, if I remember right, I think your dad actually told me that the University of Tennessee was the first college. Was that the first college y'all were in?
One of the first big ones. The first big one was Kentucky, and then right after was Tennessee. So that we have a lot of proving grounds up in that area.
Yeah,
good deal.
Yeah, and I think y'all gave Knoxville don't they have a pretty new setup up there now, all Sorinex?
They sure do, and that's actually my customer that'll be here. We're building a new one for them right now, so they're going to be here Friday. They're driving, flying down, and that's who I have coming in on Friday night.
Right on.
That's got to be a good space to be in, with kind of the arms race that is college athletics. You know,
dude, it is an arms race for sure.
Which, of course, now they can, I guess they can't directly pay them, but they're allowed to get the name, image, and likeness. But forever it was it's just who has the biggest and baddest facilities. And, and then of course probably with some money under the table.
No one ever did that, especially in the SEC.
Right. So I imagine that's a pretty good market to be in.
Yeah, it's still a dogfight like in any market. Everything looks really good from the outside, but it's kind of like anything that you're into. It always sounds great until it's like hunting in the Midwest. You're like, oh, it's awesome, until you're sitting in a tree for 14 straight hours for a week and freezing your butt off, and you're like, oh, this is what Iowa looks like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. Well, I don't know. It's funny. Ag used to be and this is something we've talked about. Ag used to be a very strenuous thing. You talk about the strenuous life, and there's still a lot of elements that are a lot of labor, but technology has advanced it so much that, I've been spraying. I was spraying and running a paratil yesterday, and both of which required me to sit in a tractor. And so, you're sitting.
Do you even have to steer, or does the GPS just do everything?
On my sprayer, I turn at the ends and it takes over once I make the turn. So I've got GPS. And hey, man, I love it. It overlaps like less than 6 inches. Like, it's super precise. But yeah, and
it's different than my 1940s Massey Ferguson that I have with a metal seat. That's
a little different than that. Now there is some GPS we could rig up on that thing if you ever wanted to.
I would think for that half-acre food plot, you really have to have that.
But if you get it, it'll ruin you. If you get it, you're going to be like, this is what I've missed my whole life.
Yeah, that sounds wild. I just bought a new Kubota this past year, and it's more than we need already, and it's just a tractor.
Yeah. You're speaking his language. He's a Kubota man over here.
We have a Ford, a Kubota, a John Deere, and a Massey Ferguson. The old ones are old. They kind of work. I guess a tractor never doesn't work. You could just do some stuff to it, but the Kubota is the jam now.
Yeah. Well, that's man, it is interesting, and that's where I kind of tried to encourage guys. A lot of farmers think that they really work hard every day, and we do a lot of work from the shoulders up. It's at the end of the day, you're mentally tired. Like, if I've sat in a tractor or combine for 14 hours a day, I'm pretty wore out when I get home. But it's not from me physically exerting myself. It's from, paying attention to everything that's going on the machine and watching this and that. And so
it's not the back-breaking work that it maybe was 50 or 100 years ago. It doesn't seem to be. I can't speak to it. I've not done necessarily either side of it at scale, but from what I've seen.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure there's some statistic that was like, I want to say like 50% I know it was in rural America, but I think like of farming communities, it was something like 50% are obese. And
I was just about to say that. I see way too many out of shape farmers to tell me that that it's like hard labor anymore.
yes, yeah, it's actually kind of I almost feel like it's an anomaly now when you see like a jacked farmer. And
Mhm.
I think about
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar was a farm kid. Now Brock is a monster, and he would talk about
True
now he grew
story.
up on a dairy farm, but this was back in the day too. They probably did not have automated pumps and everything else like most dairy operations that are still around now do. So,
Sure.
and so it has just changed. So that's why man, I'm really encouraging guys to let's try to do some. Hell, I'm a big weightlifting guy. Like I'd rather you weightlift. I'm not a if for cardio, I'd rather you just lift weights faster. Is kind of the way I
That's
look at.
You're right. Well, what it also seems that I've experienced and just watching, most places that are really good for farming seem like they're strangely enough in somewhat of a food desert. Like they're not exactly a place that you're going to get a lot of great quality food either. It seems like a lot of gas stations and diners, and the Hy-Vee that's down the street. That's a lot of processed stuff, and so that's me. My cousin has a big farm down here in South Carolina, and there's nowhere to eat anywhere near here that's worth a crap. Like, so unless you're truly preparing good food at your house that is, not, super high carb and high garbage and all this other stuff. And it kind of sucks because you can't go to the market every day. So it's like, unless you're doing it truly organic, planting a multitude of vegetables in your garden, and eating deer and fish and doves and ducks and stuff like that, or slaughtering a cow or whatever it is, it almost seems like the farmers have the worst diets I've seen, because of you're having to take non-perishable items. You're having to go to Sam's the one time you go into town that month, and you buy a whole bunch of crap, and you bring it home, and then you maybe have some sort of meat, but everything else is just a bunch of crap. And then if you're working all day, but you're not actually working all day, you see this kind of a weird phenomenon, in my opinion, from my purview, that some of the farmers are the least healthy people I've seen. And it sucks, because those are the ones that are should be creating the nutrients for the country. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
I feel like
I think you're pretty accurate, because I'd say, especially during like planting and harvest, I'd say there's a lot of farmers out there that eat 3 meals a day out of the gas station.
I was gonna say, I feel like Bert's been spying on us. Or you've been watching? Have you been riding along? No, dude, that's I finally did buy this little thing to heat up, because I'll tell you one of the big problems is I get tired of eating cold stuff all the time. So like, because I would take a lunch with me sometimes, but man, a lot of times if I want to heat something up, dude, we're in a tractor in like the middle of nowhere, and so there's nowhere to heat it up. So I did buy this little portable heater thing. I'm gonna try to do some meal prepping this year. But you're absolutely right, man. There is gas stations around every field that I work,
and Subways, and
yep. And you're lucky.
Wedges and
hey, you're lucky if it's a Subway in there. Like, typically it's like the little chicken taquitos and potato wedges and just straight garbage.
Yeah, and you're working 24 hours cutting corn, and you're smashing energy drinks, and like I watch it. I mean, my cousins took closest thing I had to a brother, and he has a big farm, and I watch where he's at, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how you would eat well there. I mean, I've hung out with him my whole life, and it's just like, man, that is what it is. When I go down there and stay with him, it's hard for me to do anything. You're eating at the darn BP, or you go down to the landing and have all you could eat catfish or something, fried catfish,
My dad, he goes to one of our local grocery stores, and he buys like 10 cans of potted meat, beanie weenies. And I mean, he will buy sardines, which I actually think aren't they decent for you?
Yeah, from what I understand, because they're so young, they don't have a high mercury content, from what I gather.
Yeah. Still probably fairly high in sodium, but like,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
but
you cook that with a bunch of crackers and a Mountain Dew.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yep.
the hot sauce. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, that's where I think, man. Yeah. I mean, our diets are garbage,
Yeah.
and hell, heart attacks are pretty rampant in farming,
Yeah.
and I think you got a combination, man. You got the stress of the job because it is insanely stress. It's the
Sure.
debt load is what makes it so insane. And so, yeah, we're eating crap, we're not exercising, and we're super stressed. And most of us
Yeah.
are either dipping, smoking, or chewing, and maybe drinking. Probably,
Yeah.
we're probably some of the most unhealthy people.
Sure. That has been 100% what I've seen.
Well, you're accurate.
It's sad. It's sad. It sucks. Yeah, it's weird. You wouldn't think that people living in a more of a city environment would have access. Well, I guess have access to better food per se. You would think, all these people want to I want to move out to the country and live off the grid and be super healthy. I'm like, yeah, if you have 2 acres and that's all you do is create your own food. But if you have to do it at scale, you're actually you move backwards, and very, very few people I know that actually do that are moving themselves in a healthier direction.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think they underestimate the time that it takes to actually grow a good garden and grow all your food. I mean, anybody can grow 5 or 6 tomatoes. But
well, you say that you don't know who you're talking to.
well, and I mean actually just 5 tomatoes, not plants. So I'm like, anybody can grow some of those, but if someone's like, I'm going to sustain my family for a year,
Right.
Oh yeah.
that's a very long, lofty goal. Yeah.
And it's a ton of work, and you better be good at canning. You better be doing it often, and pickling, and there's a lot. I mean, you almost have to have, I would think, 1 or 2 people constantly. That's what they do is food prep. Food prep and food preservation. I mean, it's a full-time job. And then so you can understand how it could be, go to the Hy-Vee for $150 a week and get a bunch of pasta and get a bunch of cheap this and cheap that.
Yeah.
Throw some high fat, cheap, crappy burger on top of it and call it a day. But you look at kind of that human performance physical side, just one of the most basic ones is, are you taking in enough protein? And I go off of a very simple equation. 1 gram of protein per day per pound of body weight. And so I'm at 240 pounds. So I would gather most farmers, I would put my paycheck on, most farmers are not taking in that ratio.
Yeah.
And like you said, okay, sardines, okay, tuna, okay, what? All right, great. I'm glad you're 25 grams of protein. Sweet. Are you eating, 10 cans of that a day?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to say that you have to be a bodybuilder, but to build lean muscle mass and to supplant the amount of protein you need for that, and then be calorically satiated, where you're not having to take on a lot of carbs and a lot of crappy fats and stuff like that. Let's say most people probably eat, in my opinion, 30 to 50 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the caloric value of that and then go, okay, well, they're going to take in X number of calories that are going to be from something else. And well, okay, they're carbs. Well, okay, are those carbs going to be, sorry, my office, this is a joke. Every podcast I do, I haven't figured out how to change my light thing where it doesn't turn off if I stay really still.
Gotcha. Just be really animated.
Yeah, exactly. Get my Italian side out, talk with my hands.
Yeah.
So going back to, let's say they have to take in, I'm making up a number, 2,000 extra calories, right?
Yeah.
Well, if that's going to be all in carbs, do you think that the average person, farmer or otherwise, is going to say, well, I have leafy greens and I have tomatoes and I have, blueberries, blackberries, avocado. I have all this myriad of great things. No, I'm going to bomb a ton of pasta.
Yeah.
And it's going to be some garbage made in wherever. And I'm full now. Great. And maybe hopefully they use, real butter instead of margarine. And hopefully they use Himalayan sea salt instead of just crappy iodinized table salt. So there are choices you can make, but in the bottom line of it, you're eating a high calorie, high acidic diet that leads to metabolic illnesses, cancers, like all this other stuff. And it's a crappy position because I don't think people are educated enough in really what a good diet looks like. But then they're not set up for success with the accessibility to it.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be very, you got to be very specific and dedicated to it, especially like you said, man, if it just takes preparation. And a lot of times it's a weird thing. And I don't know if you see this in other industries, but like I know in ag, there's a weird element to where if you are like a really fit guy and you lift, then other guys almost look down on you because they're like,
for sure, I've seen
he's not working as hard in the field because he's so busy in the gym. You know, like it's like a thing. Like he needs to work harder.
Right. It's crabs in a bucket, right?
Yep.
If you're not fat and out of shape and miserable like I am, well, screw you, kind of deal. But the funny part is, a lot of those folks, at some point of their life, they'll usually like grab me at hunt camp. They're like, "Hey, man, I'm now 42 years old and like I feel like crap. My testosterone's 250, and I've struggled with this for years." And they're honest about the situation, and they're like, "What do I need to do?" And I was like, "Well, the best thing you could have done is started 15 years ago with this conversation. But now that we're at where we are, we had the same conversation. Literally had this conversation yesterday.
Yeah,
guy that works in the timber industry, the whole deal, 340 pounds, blah 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 blah. Everyone knows the whole deal, right?" And it sucks because the answer is kind of the same. It, like you said, it's you have to be intentional about its preparation. I look at it and say, hey, you're farmers. You deal with a good bit of work, a lot of planning, and delayed gratification. Take it the same way. There's the same guys that are overweight that can grow 180-inch deer. Well, you know how to do it. You know how to like arrive at a goal. You just have to see yourself as the same trophy animal that you're like, all right, well, I know how to put weight on a cow. I know how to all the stuff, similar stuff. Like, all right, let's have access to a better food source. Let's not bring trash in the house. Do you have to work out all the time or be in the gym? No. If the average person did 25 minutes to 40 minutes of basic compound movements meaning multiple joints are used. A knee, a hip, and an ankle is all being used in the motion. If they did that 30 to 40 minutes 3 times a week, relatively hard, and ate well, their life would change.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard, but it's just like me saying, well, I can't, like literally I would say, I can't grow crap. Well, did I do a soil sample? Did I lime properly? Did I spray first? Did I, do all the things? Did I use a cultipacker? Did I seed it correctly? Or I just throw a bunch of shit out and hope for the best? I've done all the half-ass ways of doing it and had really crappy results. And then someone like yourself comes in and like, it looks like, everything grows like crazy. And they're like, how'd you do it? You're like, oh, right. You did all the right things. All the things you're kind of supposed to do for success, you actually did.
Yeah.
And then it looks super easy. But if you kind of do it the idiot way, like I've done it, and you just put some effort towards it without a real plan and without the results vary significantly. And that's all I would ask people is just be educated in that. And you don't have to do a ton, just do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is really I've never thought about the sense that farmers ought to be an easy concept for us because we're literally planting, like everything we do is delayed gratification. Like even the spraying, it takes you a little while before you see the effects of the spray, and the planting, you're waiting all season. And so it's that's true. That is really true.
I mean, you wouldn't not do a soil sample. You wouldn't not do lime or fertilizer. Like, no, I just won't fertilize this year.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know. Like, or I'm not going to spray. I'm just going to send it. I'm just going to plow the living crap out of it and walk out there and broadcast some stuff, and I'm sure it'll work out, right?
Yep. Hey, there's probably, I could probably think of 1 or 2 guys that might take that approach. Now, their crops are going to look a little different.
They'll look a little different unless they're living in black soil that something will grow.
Oh yeah.
Right? But in my farm, we basically could grow pine trees and sand.
Yeah.
Like, just sand. And so like we've had to do a lot of work, and still it sucks because you can only, so it's like, I have the equivalent of bad genetics, right? There's some people that just, they're lean, they're strong, they're big, they could eat potted meat and drink Monster Energy drinks all day long and they'll be jacked. Well, guess what? My land isn't that. So I'm having to take it very, I'm having to do some work, right? And then, you know, if you do it right, you can minimize the amount of work for the maximum amount of effort. But if people demystify it and see it for what it is, it's just kind of a mathematical equation, just like farming, just like about anything else.
Yeah.
But it has to be worth it, right? Is it worth it for your farm to produce an X number of yield of what you want? Or are you fine if it just doesn't, and you have some green stuff pop out of the ground and it's kind of interesting and nothing actually happens? If you're fine with that, then just keep doing it the way you're doing it.
Yeah. No, man. And like I said, there might be some dudes that are, but they're not, I don't operate that way. Well, I got to ask, man, so give us a little history of the farm. And like, how long have y'all had that? How'd that come to be? You know, acres and all that.
I've always wanted to have land. I love the idea of tweaking something and making it better and better and better and making it my own and strategically laying out things. I mean, back when I was 10 years old, I was building, you know, PVC brush piles in the lake and, you know, triangulating, you know, we would have GPS and whatever. So you're like triangulating this point with this big pine tree. So I know where it is on like a public lake. You're putting it out there, making your little hidey spots. And, you know, so like I always had that idea of like, I want to make my potential for adventure higher and higher and higher, whether it be hunting, fishing, or whatever it may be. So I knew at some point I wanted to have my own farm. And we looked around. And I would say we've probably had it 8 or 9 years at this point. And finally we purchased a piece of property, maybe 20 miles away from my house and my business. You know, we didn't have a ton of money, so we weren't able to get like what we consider really good land. You know, it's more, like I said, really sandy soil. It was owned by a company that did a lot of tree farming, and that was what they called like their dry spot, because a lot of places they couldn't cut in a year because of if they had a lot of rain, it was wet and soggy. They always knew they could cut something off of this land because it just perked really well, which is great if you're planting, you know, and growing pine trees, which is kind of a big industry down here, but not obviously perfect for growing big deer, which is what I enjoy. It's okay for turkeys. It's, you know, you get what I'm saying. Like just wasn't great land, but it was a price right, so we were able to get there. And then we made some changes to it from trying to turn it more into a recreational land versus really worried about timber prices and things like that, because timber seems to be down significantly.
Yeah.
But you caught it in that little swale during COVID. It's, you know, not doing much. So, I mean, I literally was in a meeting yesterday with my forester about doing kind of more of a quail cut thinning out there and trying to create more and more acreage out there that are kind of, a lot of it's dead right now because you have just, you know, you're 6 or 7 years out from pulpwood. So it's just kind of thick, kind of pines that deer walk through it. Turkeys might come through it, but it's not really offering anything. So we're figuring out a selective management plan with my mature pines, probably cut them down to a 40% solution where every big tree is maybe 10 yards apart.
Yeah.
Build some quail cut in the middle, do some burning, try to have a multi-staged approach for different wildlife, some bedding areas strategically placed with some food plots strategically placed. Try to really pull the deer and the turkeys. I mean, we get a big deer or two every year. You know, every other year, I have like maybe one to hunt or whatever, but the volume really isn't there. And then, you know, and we kill a turkey or two every year, which is, it's fine. But as my boys are growing up and, you know, heck, I still like doing it, and I'm trying to really load the bases and make a wonderland out there that, you know, that I could enjoy until I'm old. So that's kind of, we built that. We built a rifle range and archery range, and then we do some, like you said, what was it, agritourism.
Yep.
We'll host our winter strong events and host different customers out there and actually kind of tweaking with some things. Maybe we built a pavilion and things like that. So we're going to maybe have it open for weddings and venues and stuff like that. So that's other things we were looking to potentially monetize the situation, just so we could keep pouring back into the land. The idea is to have the land kind of fund itself.
Dude, that's agritourism to a T, especially like the hosting venues, like the wedding events and things like that. Yeah, if you look up like agritourism, that's one of the big things. We got a few people out here that they've bought. There's one out in like Arlington area, and they got this huge, really fancy barn, and then it's this big area, and I don't remember how it came to be, but anyways, they bought it, and now they rent it out on the weekends to like weddings, and they get like $5,000.
There's one a mile from my house.
Yeah,
Really?
that's what we're building.
Yeah.
We have the house out there that we revamped and did some new stuff to it. So it's pretty nice now. And then we're building a pavilion that's going to be 5,000-ish square feet. The idea that you could do corporate events, Christmas parties, weddings. We're kind of setting it up for that. And then you have that one house that would be like a bridal house if they wanted to do something the night before, the night after. But then we're also 30 miles from Augusta National. So when the Masters and things like that, the idea is like, okay, have select people that could rent it for the week. You have a bailout location. Guys could go out there and hit golf balls and shoot skeet and fish and cook and do all the fun stuff and host like a corporate event. So that's the idea. I want to continue to make the land better and better, to make actual fun money off of it for myself. Like that's all right and all, but my goal is just to make the land better and better and better and pay for the upfits and stuff with the use of the land. So I'm learning. That's not really where I came from. And so I'm trying to understand the potential and what's there. But then, and again, like I think from what I've been made to understand, the older model was take a piece of land, do the whole woods, the whole wood crop kind of deal. And you cut this, then this, cut this, and you can create, I think like someone told me there's roughly $3,000 an acre you could make in a 30-year period of time by the time you cut things X, Y, and Z. It doesn't seem like that funding is there anymore like it used to be. But the idea is if I could create a space, the recreational aspect of it, I would think would drive up the cost or the value a lot faster than $3,000 in 30 years per acre. So it's kind of like, and I get to enjoy it, right? Like the whole thing is like, why am I having a bunch of land that I can't walk on or it's pointless to go in just because it has pine trees? So one day I could sell it and make whatever. It's like, I've waited too long to have land to make it kind of crappy. So I'm doing like a full court press on wanting to make it awesome. Like both my boys killed their first turkeys last year, a 19 and 20 pound bird, both 11-inch beards.
Nice.
And for us, that's a pretty solid. I killed about 130-inch 8-point this year. For us, for South Carolina, that's a big deer. And so, I think I've had the farm 8 or 9 years. I've killed 3 bucks and 1 doe in 8 years. And so we target a deer, we go after him. If he's too young, we wait. I'm going to have to thin a couple does now, and that's usually for guests and for kids. But I wanted to give it a few years to understand what our carrying capacity of the land was. And then I'm trying to increase that as much as possible. So,
well, it's unique to me in the sense that, I think a lot of guys, and it's outside the normal box of agritourism in the sense of hosting like events like Winter Strong. I think a lot of people, when they think agritourism, they immediately do think of a wedding venues, or like we've built a little farm store and we got produce and stuff, and we'll have animals there for the kids to feed. And
nice.
But dude, you got the range is probably my favorite part out there. Like, with the Connex setup you got up there, and the ranges are just bad to the bone. And that's one thing I'm like, now I know it's a little bit tricky because I thought about that even on this farm where we're at here. It's 200 acres, and it's like, man, I'd love to put in a rifle range.
Sure.
But it's in like a certain proximity of the city. And so I know you run into some weird regulation with that.
Right.
but it does. It kind of. I wanted to share this because it shares with other guys. There might be some dudes listening. They're like, "Well, I got a big block of ground, but it's just not. It's not the best for like row crop, and I just don't know what to do with it." And I mean, man, events like that, like there's at least get the place where it could pay for itself, like you say, like it could generate enough funds to at least pay for itself, and then you can just enjoy the property.
Right, right. And you know, to be honest, like we don't make money on Winter Strong.
Yeah.
We don't charge enough for it, and the costs are high, but it's fine. We're having it associated with Sorinex, and it's a marketing event and enjoyable, and
Yep.
it's our giving back to the industry. You know, so I haven't, to truth be told, I haven't found a lot of ways to make the place flush. You know, it doesn't pay for itself on this stand, but that's why we're doing some of this other stuff.
Yep.
You know, could I cut 50 acres of it and or thin it and create quail habitat and run quail hunts out there? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And I may, but also that means you have to have someone to manage it. You have to have, you know, the insurances and everything like that. So I'm looking into all that side of it. But the fun part is at least we get to enjoy it. You know, and I entertain customers out there, and so there's a lot of indirect asset to it that you don't really get a line item like this made $100,000 this year. It's like, no, but a lot of interesting people that I do business with got to go out there and have a great time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the entertainment or marketing value. We kind of joke in the marketing world. It's like, you know, if you do it right, half of your marketing works. The bad part is you don't know which half that was. And so you kind of like, well, I think it works. We have a lot of fun out there and we're doing all right. So I guess it's working, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to make some things a little bit more linear, whether it be a wedding venue or whether, you know, we're taking one of our fields right now and planting sunflowers in it. And so it's like, well, it's going to be great when dove season comes because I could host dove hunts. But also in the meantime, during the summer, if people want to get wedding photos taken,
Yep.
That's a wonderful place to take wedding photos. That might be something that I can monetize. Then also it creates the funnel that pulls people into the wedding venue aspect of it. And all it cost me was planting my dove field.
Yeah. No, I absolutely was going to say, man, that is a huge thing you can monetize. There's people around here that they have sunflower fields basically just for photography. And
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yep.
And a buddy of mine who helps run the farm, like he used to be a photographer. So he kind of knows that side of it. I never even thought of it. I said, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. And that's what, as creative as you can get, you can create your own opportunities with it. And it's limitless. I mean, you know, I mean, man, I just see all the things. And with you mentioned canning earlier, and I know I saw this past Winter Strong, y'all had canning.
We did.
So like, I thought that was awesome. So, I mean, you're putting all of those elements in there, and I think you'll be surprised at the income off of the wedding venues, especially. There's, man, some people spend some big cheese for the wedding events.
Oh, I know. I mean, I got married 15 years ago at a farm. It was much larger, you know, setup than I have, but well, me and my group left them with a whole bunch of money. So, you know, and then I booked a hunt while I was there. They were a hunting location, and my dad was sitting there during the wedding and booked a darn hunt for us later. So they took our money left, right, and center. So that was a good deal. And so I look at that as a potential model. And in worst case scenario, you keep getting the land better and better that you could enjoy. And then if you ever did want to sell it, you know, for what I'm understanding, recreational land is increasing in value faster than typical farmland. And especially if you're relatively close to a major city, which we are. So I'm kind of trying to leverage those pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. I think you're moving in the right direction. Bobby Lee would tell you to put some cattle out there. That's what you need next.
Is that it? Is that what we do?
Now's not the time to be getting in, though.
Do they eat sand spurs and chiggers?
You know, I don't think so. But thankfully, we've got the chiggers. But sand spurs, something. I actually took one out of a dog's foot not too long ago. It was the first time I'd ever seen one.
I don't guess I've ever seen one.
These people had been at the beach, and I was like, I'll be damned.
No, we don't have them here, but we're darn close to having them.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of my land, I have some water, and we got some decent size oaks down by the water and everything, but for the most part, it's a bunch of planted pines,
Yeah.
scrub. And some of them drop the little pin oaks and stuff like that, and they're good for hunting for 2 or 3 weeks. And besides that, it's sand, pine straw, and another thing I have been told, we could sell pine straw out there because we have a zillion tons of it. And maybe that's a pine straw harvesting situation. I just don't know enough about that. I don't know how that works. So if someone does, they could feel free to fill me in. But
I think they bale it. Don't they bale it?
I've seen it in bales.
Yeah. From what I understand, you could do a contract, and they could go a multi-year contract, and they kind of shift the land around a little bit, but then they go in and bale it all up for a multi-year thing. So the forest floor gets pretty clean. Which, I assume if there's a whole bunch of pine straw everywhere, that doesn't really help the deer or the turkeys much anyway.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm kind of looking into. Do I want a whole bunch of people scraping through every inch of my property all year long? I don't know. I need to learn more about it, but I don't know.
How many acres is the farm?
It's a little under 550.
Yeah. I was thinking, because I knew when we ran all the way around it, or did the course there, it was a big area.
Yeah, the course is about 1.5 miles. That's probably on about 40% of the farm.
Yeah.
The other side, I usually more hunt and fish, and we're kind of just keeping it a little bit more pristine. We have our archery course. You have, that 1-mile-long archery course on there that we've got a lot of use out of, and, some of the shooting ranges and things like that. But that one side of it is a little bit more recreational per se. So that's why I might actually kind of separate the two.
Yeah.
But all of it costs money and time. And that's kind of the idea. If I could, maybe utilize some of the resources that are already there to kind of self-pay, among other things we're attempting to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You got iron and a lot of fires there. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not really, smart with the management.
Well, man, I think it's interesting. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about too, though, is something that you're doing that a lot of farmers are in is, continuing the legacy that their dads kind of created and started. And has there been any particular challenges? because a lot of guys, the average age of a farmer, they say, is 60, and
wow.
it's increasing, and it may reach a cap if they keep eating potted meat and stuff all the time, but that's where the average age is currently. It was 57 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow, so they're just aging up.
Yep. And because you have a problem, you got a lot of guys that I know guys right now that their dad is still the man in charge, and he's 80, and they're 60 years old, and their dad's in their 80s, and he calls all the shots. And sometimes you'll have a situation where when the dad is gone, they've never been in the decision-making roles, and so they don't know. And these are, grown men, and they don't know. And so the operations kind of bite the dust, or you have them it's tough. So what kind of,
I would say, and this sounds maybe harsh, I would say that's poor leadership and poor parenting.
Yeah.
I think as parents, we have to realize that we won't be here forever. And and my dad used to always call it, I can't always be the guy that cleans the deer. And so when I was a little kid, he's like, yeah, you're going to screw it up, but I had to get your knife in here and you doing it, because otherwise I'll always do it. I'll always be the guy that does it, and so that's kind of been a mantra. It's I can't always clean the deer for you, buddy. And so where my dad did a really good job, I think, early on, stress inoculating and challenging me to make decisions. And then he was making the decisions and I was watching. Then he was making the decisions and I was in on the conversation. Then he and I would have the conversation and he would still make the decision. Then it was he and I would have the conversation and I would make the decision. And they kind of timed it out where towards the end of his life, we literally had conversations where he would say, well, I trust you, whatever you do, just keep me posted so I can have your back.
Yeah.
And he was 74 when he passed. But that was probably the last 4 or 5 years. But there was 10 years prior to that I was heavily in the decision-making conversation. But he realized, he's like, I won't be here forever. Like, I
Yeah.
have to prep you for that, or I'm not doing a good job as a dad and a leader. And I think I would challenge some men that they have to realize that they have a shelf life of utility, but also on this earth. And our goal is to prepare that next group to come up and make decisions. And it's not saying they're always going to be right. And that's what Pops used to tell me. He's like, listen, make any decision you want. You just, if I ask you why you did it, you better have a reason.
Yeah.
And all that meant was, don't make willy-nilly, ready, shoot, aim decisions. You can miss, just tell me why you chose to shoot.
Yeah.
And then we could work on that, because then it just tells me at least that you're paying attention and you're attempting to make good decisions. It's like kind of another one of my mentors said to me one time, and was really cool how he phrased it. He said, if you come to me with a problem, have at least 2 solutions potential, and one of them can't cost anything. And he goes, and if it's anything other than that, you're just bitching. So then don't walk into my office, right? And so it was such a great way to look at it. And the whole point of it was, if you have a problem and you're going to bitch, think about it long enough and be invested in the process long enough that you could actually add something of significant value to the situation. And one of them can't be something that just throws money at the problem. It might be a crappy idea, but it still needs to be free. And all that does is starts teaching people the process of solving problems. And then they come in and they say, hey, this is happening. I've thought about it. Maybe we could do this, or we could do this. And then that's where you get the mentorship. Hey, that's a cool idea, or that's a terrible idea because this and this and this will most likely happen. And then that's how you mentor people to start making the decisions. Unfortunately, if someone always is at the beck and call and the obeying of the top dog, it's like you have your underpinning washes out. Like, you still have the top dog, and everyone under there doesn't know what to do. They don't know how to shoot, and you give and shoot as a proverbial sense, and you train people to be impotent in their decisions. Because like when my dad got sick 20 something years ago, and I had to kind of take over part of the business. And then one day he was like, I need you to be a leader, and I need you to like make decisions. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm like a dog that has learned to obey you of everything since I was a little boy. You told me, listen, and so I said, that's like coming home and your dog's laying on the floor and you throw him the keys of the house. You're like, hey man, you run this organization now. And he's like, huh? Like, I take orders. What are we talking about? I'm making the decisions. And so we had to kind of have that conversation. And thankfully he'd already been kind of putting some of those things in, but then he had to turn up the gas of like, I have to release some power, or you will remain impotent in this situation until I go. And then I'm super screwed, because then I never had to swing the sword. And
but
so
what do you
say
to a guy? Because I'm gonna tell you, man, and I'm sure same in business, but like in farming, it's very much like there's this very hard thing of change. And so, you got a lot of the old dogs in it. They, it's their way or the highway, and that's just the way it's going to be. And, I mean, what do you say to that guy that maybe his dad is freaking 70, 80 years old, and he's still like, this is the way it's going to be. And I mean, cause a lot of the young guys, and I dealt with this whenever I was working with my dad. Like, I have a separate operation from my dad's. We get along great, but we do not work together.
Boy, it's hard.
Yes. And, but like I would ask, what about planting early beans, or what about cover crops and trying these? And it'd be like, that's not a good idea. Like, every idea would get shot down. So like, what would you say to that guy that's still working under his dad, if he's being blocked off on every situation like that? What, dude, your light, that trips me out.
So stupid. But the bad part is I'll forget about it after this podcast, and I'll never fix it.
No. But what would you tell that dude?
Right now, light, big circle. Got it.
Yes. What do you tell the guy that's like, he's like, man, my dad, he won't hand over any power, and there's not a lot of room for conversation. I mean, do you tell him that he needs to maybe go somewhere else, or what's the?
I mean, every conversation every situation has its own nuances. I would say first, something that needs to be established as early as possible, if possible, and I caveat that with if possible, is to be able to have curious and candid conversations with your loved ones and your employers or employees. If you can't be, what I mean by curious and candid, curious is I'm actually going to ask you questions and listen to you, what your answer is, and candid is the reciprocal to that. Is if you ask me my opinion, I'm actually going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And if both people can't do that, it's kind of a non-starter. It really screws things up in any relationship. And so I would work towards that first, because that builds the framework of how you can have these conversations, and it builds respect of, my same cousin I was talking about. He was talking, and this is a pure case study. So he and his dad, same kind of thing, generational farm, his granddad, like the whole deal, right?
Yep.
And he was talking to his dad one day, and they had chicken houses they have a good bit of acres, and they have chicken houses they have for 20 something years. And his dad asking me one day, he said something about the chicken houses. And my cousin, who's a little bit younger than me, looked at his dad. He goes, I'll be honest. He goes, unfortunately, after you pass, he's like, when we bury you and I give the eulogy, he's like, I'm selling the damn houses the next day. And his dad goes, what? He goes, that's our way of life, this and that and the other. And he goes, and now I might piss people off or whatever, but hey, whatever. He's like, no, man. He goes, they always keep us in debt. They work our butts off. They change the price on it, and we're working for them, that company, forever. And he goes, and we never made a dime, and we're working our asses off for nothing. And he goes, I'd sell them. I'd sell the land under it on those houses, and I would put the land into this. I'd irrigate this place. I'd go solar on this part of our farm. I'd do this, and this. And he goes, and allow all of us to actually go and do other things in life while our farm thrives. He goes, I don't know. I've just been thinking about that.
Yeah.
And his dad was kind of not super pumped about that conversation. The next day he was like, hey, tell me about that thing again. What were you thinking? Tell me why. And then, so they had a good, healthy relationship, and there was respect, but there was candid. You ask me a question and I'm telling you, and then I'm substantiating it with, I've thought about that. So here's the numbers that from his opinion lined up with that.
Yeah.
The next year they sold the houses. They started irrigating this. They did this, that. They put the money into this. They negotiated a good thing for solar. Boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden, the farm is making a good bit of money. He's doing other land management. He's did like all these other things. Their whole livelihood. They still own their farm, the majority of it. They don't do a lot of the crap work.
Yeah.
They're doing other big moves that are putting money in the bank account. My cousin went to Africa last year and got to go hunting because he's like, I could finally don't have to wake up every single day and pull dead chickens out of the chicken house.
Yeah.
I actually have a little bit of money. I could actually go buy other lands and farm them and manage them and do all this other stuff. And he's like, but I couldn't with this anchor around my neck. Now, this is in no way to say chicken houses are bad or people are doing it. Like, I don't know that world. I'm just going off of a specific case study that I thought was a very interesting conversation that shifted away. One singular family did their business, but it came from a curious dad, a candid conversation, and then they aligned pretty darn well. And I talked to the dad now, and I was like, what you up to? He's like, man, I'm killing the snot out of some coyotes. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, we go all the time. And he's having a ball. He's getting back into bow fishing. He's getting back into killing coyotes and all this other stuff. And we've kind of laughed. He's like, yeah, talk about my cousin. He's like, yeah, the boy was smarter than I thought. Like, he kind of figured some stuff out,
Yeah.
But he would have never changed because that's what his daddy did. That's what was maybe the market told him to do at that time. And it doesn't mean he was bad or any of that. It was just life changes, the world changes, and there was another opportunity for them to do some different things. And so I have to commend both of them for being honest and starting to do it. Now, if that conversation was unable to be had or was met with, you're absolutely crazy and it ain't your farm and go pound sand, well, my cousin would have probably had to go do something else to start making his own way, or he would have, been a 60-year-old man still at the same farm going, well, I'm making $40,000 a year, living in my little house, and I wake up every day and schwack dead chickens with a stick.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't know how accurate that is. Again, I'm not a farmer. I'm just going off of fire barrel talk with people I know.
No, I agree. What do you think?
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Yeah. And again, I think it goes even outside of ag, any, multi-generational, business. And I don't know, I think some people do have a little bit of a hard time accepting their own mortality and, but I don't know. And I would even point out, if you care about this farm going on and surviving beyond your life, you need to be open to having those conversations and maybe, turning loose some of that control. Let us take off with training wheels. Don't let it be just throw you in the deep end,
exactly.
Dad's dead. Now you better learn how to swim.
Well, and that's where second generation businesses fail. That's where farms fail, like all that. Like you have to train your replacement. You have to, or you're intentionally saying that when I go or whatever happens, then this thing is going to die with me. And I'm good with that. And whether it's pride, whether it's hubris, whatever it is, when we all believe like I'm the only guy that can run this. So if it ain't my way, it might as well die.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, then play it like that. But if you want to truly leave something to your kids, you've got to have them in the conversation before that, so they understand and respect and love it. If you're always iron fisting over someone, then they're not going to love that land. They're going to have no fingerprints on it themselves. They'll never be a dream, and they'll get to an age where they just won't believe that they'll get trained into being the dog on the floor. They'll never believe that they have their hand on the steering wheel of their life. They'll get demoralized. They'll just go, okay, well, this is just how life is. And well, I'm going to wait till daddy dies. Well, you're 65 years old now that you can do what you want. You're tired.
Yeah.
You're tired. That's why people retire at 70, because they are tired. It's right there in the name. Retire. Tired.
Yeah.
And you all these people say, well, I'm going to do it when I retire one day. Bro, you ain't going to do crap when you retire. You're going to be tired. I watched my granddad did it. He worked. He retired, and he was in the same chair for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Every day I came to his house, chairs recline, and he's watching Price is Right or something like that. And it pissed me off because the time I could have spent with my granddad hunting and fishing and all these stories I heard of his youth, I never saw.
Yeah.
I saw a man that was nice, and he knew a lot of stuff, and I'd go and talk to him, and he'd sit in his chair until he died. And so we have no history.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I go, gosh, like, wish there would have been a different scenario there. Right. And I'm very happy that my dad thought in those regards. And that's something for me to remember, because I'm 48. I'm getting older and older. And so I have to bring my kids into this conversation, and like we homeschool. And so one of the things I'm going to do with them, I'm going to get the plan from the timber management company. I'm going to bring them and then use that as a teaching conversation and help them mathematically arrive at the numbers of tonnage per acre. And how do we figure that out? And what type of money do we think, okay, if our budget is this, we're going to make this off of this. What project could we do with that? Okay, well, we want to make these food plots here. Well, let's discuss what a soil sample looks like, and tie in economics and math and science and all this stuff, where if they're helping me lay this stuff out, and then we start talking strategy, we're going to have this food plot, and it's going to be near this bedding area. The ingress is going to be here, and the egress is going to be here for hunting. And what do we think we could do? And then they have their fingerprints on it. and then they're a part of that conversation, and then they help put in the food plots and help put up the stand. And when they kill a big buck out of there in 6 years, they'll learn delayed gratification. And I remember when Daddy did this, and man, this was really cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I hunted a guy's property. It was so cool 2 years ago. And he was a concrete company. Then he was oil and gas. But he started this property up in Virginia. It was beautiful. He goes, let me show you something. They got in the golf cart and rode over there. And there was these giant, like, hourglass shaped field. And right down the middle pinch point of it, there were these oak trees 10 yards apart, 10 yards, and there was just like an alley of them that cut this field in half. And I'm like, man, this is cool. He goes, you know what was cool? He goes, me and my boys, when they were young, we planted these trees and acorns. And he goes, they started producing after X number of years, and we set up a tripod stand that was watching over this whole corridor, and it created a corridor for the deer to cross this field. And they would eat out of the acorns. He goes, when the trees got bigger, we hung a stand in these same trees, and my boys shot deer under these trees. He goes, and now my boy got married last year, and this was the alleyway. He walked down the aisle, and and I'm like, oh my gosh, talk about a generational plan.
Yeah.
He was talking about this one little corridor of 50 yards of oak trees were like the story of his family.
Yeah.
And he gave me some of the acorns from that. He's like, I want you to plant some of these on your farm, from my farm to your farm. And so you could do the same thing. And like, I looked at that, like, what a beautiful story, but he had the kids involved.
Yeah.
And, and I look at that and I go, that's, in my opinion, that's winning. That is winning as a dad, winning as a farmer. And, and so then he shared it with other people. He shared it with me. I got to hunt it and all this other stuff. So I look at that and go, that's, in my opinion, an education. That's teaching so many things. Like I said, economics, math, strategy, weather, like all this stuff is packed into something as simple as we're building a food plot.
Yeah.
And well, so, I don't know. That's how I see it.
Well, and I mean, yeah, and I can't agree more. I mean, and you hit it on the head when you say, like, you train them. Are they going to be a person with input, or are they going to just be a dog that never says anything? And that's where I have heard of countless stories. I've seen several firsthand where guys around here, they had really thriving farming operations. They had a son that was, middle-aged, would have been prime age to take over the operation. And I'd heard stories, some of the seed reps, they'd go over there and they would be talking bean varieties. What are we going to plant here and here and here? As soon as they'd start talking that, the son would be like, all right, I'm going to go work out in the shop. When y'all get done, I'll be ready. He'd go out there and be working on the planter. He could work on stuff, knew how to fix things, but all of the upper level, the management, all right, what bean variety, what fertilizer, when do we do this? When do we do that? None of those things they knew because they were not involved in any of that. And it was like, they were not involved. Like maybe at some point they offered input and the father shot it down. So they were like, okay, I'm just a farmhand. And that's what a lot of guys feel like. It's like, all I am is a farmhand. I'm not a partner in this operation. I'm just a farmhand. Like, I'm a tractor driver. And so,
yep. And I'll go back and I'll push on that, and I'll say that's the dad's fault as a dad and a leader. Then he created that.
Yeah.
Generally. Now there's some guys who just have no ambition. They're like, nah, man, I'm a wrench monkey. That's what I do. Like, okay, fine. If that's really what you're about. But if you've not given them the potential to start solving those problems and think higher, you're stunting their growth and stunting their opportunities in this world. And our job, in my opinion, as dads, are to increase our kids' opportunities that exceed our own, not to intentionally, glass ceiling them to, I want you to succeed, but like only like 80% of what I did, because is that ego? Is that like, what is that? And I, my dad was a very, very competitive person, but his goal was always, at least, I wouldn't say always, there was still competition between he and I, which I think is good and healthy. but he was happy when I succeeded more than he did at ways.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, the goal of every dad is for their kid to be better than they were. And,
Yep.
and I would even say my goal is that also, not because I want to be better than you, but I want to honor your work, because if I could only succeed or excel to 50%, 70%, 80% of the level that you did, then I've relinquished the gift of all the hard work you did before.
Yeah.
If my dad had worked so hard and then I still never achieved the level that he did, then what the heck did I do? He did all the hard work for.
Yeah.
Like, if I have to start from zero, then we're not moving the family bloodline up, and then we're not stacking success upon success. If I have to, I had to do it the hard way to start, and at times, but I shouldn't have to do 30 or 40 years of hard ass labor to maybe get where my daddy got. Well, that's just dumb, in my opinion. Like that, what are you thinking? Like, if you're not moving your family's bloodline and opportunity up, I told my dad, I'm successful because I stood on the shoulders of giants. I stood on the shoulders of his work, and my goal was to learn everything he knew, everything at every level. And his goal was to teach me everything at every level. And if I could take all of his knowledge in 10 years, what it took him 40 years to gather, then I have another 30 years to add my own experiences on top of that. And when I teach my kids, I'm going to condense that down again and take the wave tops of all the things they need to know and pack that into them, because I want to give them as much running room as they can to bump it up again. But if you're not having that mindset, then you're kind of intentionally, in my opinion, hobbling your family's bloodline, because you're like, they're not built for that, or I don't want to give them anything. Like, I get it, man. You want kids to work hard. But at some point, I don't want to see my kids struggling on the streets and calling me for money, whatever. I've never asked either one of my parents for a dime after 19 years old.
Yeah.
I left home at 17, and I was in college. I needed a little bit of money to get through a couple tuition payments. And then after that, I earned a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, and I haven't asked for a dime from either one of them in 30 years.
Yeah.
And, I use that as motivation, because I go, you know what? I want to utilize their resources of teaching me things, not asking for stuff. I told my pops before he passed, I said, man, if you want to spend every bit of your money and sell everything and go on world tours, whatever, I said, you don't need to leave me anything. I said, my inheritance that you gave me was an opportunity. It was insight. It was strategy. It was a work ethic. It was starting me in this business, teaching me. You gave me the opportunity to be successful. If you want to have all the fruits of that and you want to give it all to charity or whatever you want to do, that is yours. That's your party. If you want to leave me something great, I'll appreciate it. But you already gave me my inheritance here on earth. And that's what I'm trying to do with my kids is give them their inheritance of the non-tangibles first, and then they'll never go hungry, because if they know how to work and how to think and how to strategize, I don't have to worry about them. Pops used to tell me, because I don't got to worry about you. You'll be fine. And so then it's not about dollars, cents, and a bunch of BS that can be taxed or fought about in probate. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry for the soapbox diatribe.
Dude, no, I think it's great. Because that is, we get asked all the time about succession planning, because farmers are notoriously bad at this. And it is weird, Bobby Lee was saying, like, I think people just, for some reason, it's like we feel like we're just never going to die. And it's not a topic
it's a hard one to think about.
Yeah, it is. So, man, I think it's spot on. What do you think?
No, absolutely.
Succession plan, I had to be convinced to get into it, and Pops and I did our whole thing, and I have some good friends in that world, and we got a plan all together. I'm so glad we did it. I'm just telling you guys that are stressing about it. It's terrible. It's a pain in the butt. It's not what you want to think about. I have some stuff on my desk right now I have to do for mine. 48 years old, but I never know, but it's like, I'm so glad we did certain things that, and Pops used to say, he goes, when I go, it's going to be stressful enough. Let's not add to it.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not add financial stress and all these other logistical stresses to an already emotional situation. So it's just checking the boxes and doing the double, double checking and being smart. It's just being smart. And it's hard though, because it's not what any of us want to think about. We want to think about nice green pastures and big bucks and big fish and fish fries and Easter Sundays and all that fun stuff. But there are dark times coming for us all, even if it's a few days. And if you truly love your family and love the people that you say you do the work, do the shitty work on the front end. So those last few seconds that you're on earth, you're not worrying about it. You set up everybody, and then your family doesn't have to go through double and triple trauma, because it's hard. It's going to be hard enough.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, we're kind of nearing the end of the line here.
Yes, sir.
Something we do at the end of every episode, and I'll be curious to hear your recommendation here. But at the end of every episode, we do a American-made segment where we highlight a company or a brand or product that's made in USA.
Yes, sir.
And Bobby Lee cues up. We've got a special little intro we do to this segment. You'll appreciate this. I'm sure you'll recognize the voice.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
2 words, man. Made
Love
in
that.
America.
Love
So
that.
what is a brand or product that you would put your stamp of approval on that's made in USA?
Well, I love MKC, Montana Knife Company. Those guys over there, they doing a great job. Origin, they're doing a great job with clothing made in America.
Yep.
A lot of those guys are all my friends, but my friends I think very highly of, and I like to support them. So
Gotcha.
Hey, and Sorinex, we're made in America.
Yeah, we've given you a
I was
highlight.
about to say, I think all 3 of those companies, have gotten shout outs before. So
Yep.
solid ones for sure.
They are great companies.
Leopold Optics do a great job. Bo Kortson Firearms. Those are all friends of mine, and those are all gear that I runs flawlessly. Those are folks that I look highly upon.
I think
sure.
Those are 5 companies I enjoy as well.
Yeah, we own something from every one of them.
Yeah.
Nosler bullets. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yep. Yeah, man. Yeah, and I had to rep my 1980s hat here, my
I like
Sorinex hat for it. Man, I appreciate you coming on, Bert. It's always a joy catching up with you.
Likewise.
You got any closing words you'd like to leave everybody with?
Man, if you guys it sounds like you guys are all farmers. Y'all have all of it. Y'all have all the pieces. You have a hard work. You have the dedication. You have the understanding of delayed gratification. I would just challenge each one of you guys to decide what you want out of life. Realize you already have the tools to do it, and just build a similar plan that you would, whether it's for building a duck impoundment or a great field or whatever. You have those skill sets that most of the world don't. And so please don't give up on that. You guys are holding the world together, but also figure out what you want out of life and realize that you can build a plan, and then it's not going to happen right away, but make your life better and better, because we need you guys succeeding and lasting a long time and being you're already the heartbeat of our country, and just keep doing it. I just want to see you guys succeed.
Awesome, man. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Guys, where can they follow you? Tell everybody where they can see what you're up to.
Bert Sorin, BertSorin, Sorinex Outdoors, all on IG. I think we're on Twitter, but I don't go there. And then Sorinex.com if you need any gear.
Awesome. Well, y'all check them out. While you're out there doing that, we need y'all to leave us a rating and a review. Give us 5 stars. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the episode. And if you got any questions, go to talkdirtpodcast.com and submit them at our contact page. And what else they need to do?
Yeah, y'all go to agritourism.com. Check them out. The discount code Talk Dirt, all caps, all one word.
Do they have cocaine available at agzaga.com?
You know, there might be some regulatory issues there, but I don't know. You know, I don't know. Trump's changing a lot of laws and stuff.
Never know
Maybe,
these days.
but you know, marijuana's legal most places now. So maybe,
Yeah, maybe
one
one
day.
day.
I don't believe they offer any marijuana products either. But maybe if you're baling, you can bale a variety of products.
Yes.
Get you some twine or net wrap. But yeah, use that discount code Talk Dirt, all caps, all one word. Save yourself 10%.
Yep. All right, guys. We will catch y'all next week.
See ya.
So